So glad that you're here. Today we're having our Mother's Day panel, and I want, without further ado, can we give it up for our 2026 Mother's Day panel? Thank you all so much for being a part of this, and I'll just give you a fair warning, church, that the clapping right there was pretty weak. And it's hard to be up here, so at the very least to encourage them as they answer, as they introduce themselves, let's make them feel welcome and safe, and as they give of themselves to us this morning. So one more time, let's give it up for our Mother's Day panel. Well, thank you guys again so much. They look great, by the way, right? Thank you for being with us and being with us on Mother's Day. I want to start with Heather. Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I want to ask you a question about your unique stage of motherhood.
I have 3 children. My eldest is Joaquin, he's 13, and he has Angelman syndrome. And then I have 2 typical children, a daughter who's 9, Jimena, and a typical son, Elias, who's 12.
Thanks, Heather. Heather also serves as our special needs director and has done a tremendous job here at Outer West, so thank you for stepping into this position. Heather, when it comes to parenting, and especially being a mom, oftentimes there are these checklists or milestones that people have. So by the time your child is 12 months, that they're supposed to start to walk, or 18 months, they're supposed to start talking, and then they'll make the baseball team at this age and do this here. And there's all these boxes that we check off mentally when it comes to our kids, these expectations that we have. As a special needs mom, you have to redefine the way that you view success for yourself and for your son, Joaquin. How have you done that?
Yeah, I think at the beginning it's kind of rewiring that my kids, especially Joaquin, but any of them, what they do, their achievements or their lack thereof, isn't a reflection on me and my parenting. Sometimes when our kids make the team or do really well, it kind of is satisfies something within ourselves. And so especially with Joaquin, who has profound disability where he's a non-speaker, going to the dentist is hard, transitioning out of church into the car is difficult. I had to rearrange kind of what success looks like, and also kind of feeling like I could hold the space of grieving of him not being able to make those accomplishments and milestones, but at the same time fiercely loving who he is and celebrating the things that he can do. And so I found a lot of harmony in being able to hold those 2 things, where I can hold the grief of wishing he was able to do these things, but also fiercely loving who he is. And in some days I sit in the grief more, and some days I sit in the beauty more, but oftentimes it's kind of a mix of both. And when I can kind of settle that in my heart, that I don't have to side on one side or the other, that I can kind of hold those, there was a sense of harmony where I was able to really love him for who he is.
Thank you, Heather. I love what you said, that those 2 things don't have to be mutually exclusive, that there could be some grief, but there could also be just loving on your child where he's at. And as a special needs dad and parent, along with my wife, Crystal, I've had to learn to slow down to my son's pace and to meet him where he's at. And just yesterday, I was trying to rush him out of getting out of the van because he goes at his own pace, and I had to catch myself because there are these, again, expectations that we have of what pace and success and quickness looks like, and I think that special needs kiddos teach us how to do that differently. And I heard someone say this, that every parent in the world should have a special needs child. And I don't know how I feel about that for the sake of the special needs child, but I get the heart behind it, right? Of what does it mean to redefine the world's expectations of success and parenting. So thank you for sharing about that. I also think, Heather's, your answer speaks to, in a spiritual sense, how God sees us, right? Like we have these checklists of what it means to perform before God, or how to impress God, or the things that we need to do as Christians. And maybe you have an idea of, like, at this age, you'll be here as a Christian or as a follower of Jesus. And I think the gospel continues to remind us that God just meets us right where we're at. So there's some spiritual wisdom as well there. So thank you, Heather, for speaking about that. Parenting, again, and being a mom has so many different stages. Shamir, I want to come to you. And your life stage is very unique. But before we get into your question, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Good morning. My name is Shamira. I have a 6-year-old son. His name is Hamilton, and we've been here in San Antonio for 6 years and at the church for 3.
Awesome, awesome. Let me say, that side is doing way better than this side. Just kidding. All right, Shamira, you're a single mother, and that's a unique life stage. And I shared this last service, and just to name the church broadly speaking, and even Outer West at times, we don't always do a great job of coming alongside single parents and single moms. And so I want you to share out of your experience of how the church has been maybe a solace for you, but in your context, as a single mom, you are the only person that can take care of a child, and you're the lone breadwinner, and you're the one that has to build a healthy, sustainable life for your child as the only safety net. How have you done that with your son?
So it has been a process, and just for some context, I was married, divorced here in San Antonio. He was in the Air Force. He's still in the Air Force, and he actually is stationed in another country. My family lives on the West Coast, so it truly is just Hamilton and I here in San Antonio. So it was hard. In the beginning, it was easy for me to put a lot of shame and condemnation on myself just because I wasn't feeling good about my situation and how it was developing. And that kept me isolated from people. Through time and intentional effort, I had to just start showing up with, a friend from home and my cousin and just being honest with them about what I was actually going through, because that helped me feel less disconnected in general, because I was no longer worried about how people were perceiving me, and I just needed to show up in what I was actually going through, and people needed to know. I didn't want to live that life because it was very easy for me to isolate myself and stay to myself and hide. So that's where I started in building a life for myself, because my responsibilities didn't change, my roles increased, but I still had to live, and my son still needed a healthy mom. So for me, community was a big part of that, because slowly but surely, I had to start showing up in San Antonio. I wasn't going to go back home. I was going to stay. So showing up here in different groups and classes helped me be more present and also be more available, be more visible. And hearing other people's stories helped me as well, because my world got bigger. My world was no longer about me and my problems, but I was able to expand it in that way. And yeah, so it's still a process.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Things are still changing, and I'm still actively going through it. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I really do mean this. The steps that you're taking to care for Hamilton and for yourself, and being strategic about it and putting yourself out there, I think all of us would agree that you're doing a great job as a mom. So thank you for sharing some of that with us. I love Shamira's response, because oftentimes when life gets difficult, it's easy for us to close the doors, right? And she has opened that to try to find community and to find others. And I think that's true whether you're a single mom or you're married as well. I know that was the case for my wife and I. We are very close. We talk openly. We talk about everything. There's nothing that I don't know that she doesn't know. But the first time that I felt a kind of distance between she and I is when she was pregnant with our first son, Ezra. And all I knew was how to go get McDonald's at 12 a.m. and then how to go back 30 minutes later. But I didn't know how to relate to her as a mom who was pregnant. And there was this disconnect there, and she had to find that in some ways with other women and other moms who had gone through that before in her life. And so I say that to say, community is such an important part of parenting and motherhood, whether you're single or you're married and even have a spouse. And so I'd encourage you, if you're feeling lonely or isolated, begin to take steps like Shamira did to find others that will come alongside of you and help build your life alongside of you and connect with you in unique ways. And the opposite of community is isolation, and oftentimes with isolation comes guilt, and probably every mom can relate to mom guilt that you might feel. So I want to shift to Stacy. Stacy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so my husband and I, we have a 4.5-year-old and a 1-year-old daughter. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, times can definitely feel chaotic. I am a mom who works outside of the home. So, a lot of days, things with different appointments or different meetings, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. And there are definitely times where I feel mom guilt. I'm like, am I spending enough time, with my daughter? And I'm spending time with her thinking I need to be doing something for work. So, trying to find a rhythm is really important. One way that I try to do that is to spend intentional time with them. A lot of days after picking my daughter up, actually when I go to pick her up at daycare, she says, "Mom, which park are we going to today?" And I'm like, you tell me. So just spending that time with her. And when I go and do those things with her, I really try to be present. It's so easy to be on my phone. I mean, I could be on my phone all day for work, but just putting the phone away and really spending that time with her. Sometimes if I'm on my phone too much, she takes it and says, "I'm putting your phone in phone jail," and she runs and puts it in her little kitchen, and then I hear it ringing. I'm like, okay. So just really trying to be intentional. It's important for me as a mom. Part of that is I want to provide what I consider a good life for my girls. I really want them to be able to have things and do things. But there's really nothing, if you were to ask them, there's no toy or shoes or clothes that's more important to my daughter than just the time that I spend with her. That's what she wants more than anything. And she asks me for it all the time. She says, "Mom, will you sit down and color with me? Can we walk around the neighborhood? Can we go play kickball?" That's what she wants. And I have to remember as a mom that those are the things that are really more important. I'm so grateful to be a mother. There's so much gratitude, and when things feel overwhelming sometimes, I just have to remind myself, like, I'm so grateful to be a mom. I don't want it to feel like a burden. I want it to be something that I really lean into because I don't get this time back with my children. So that's something that is really important to me. And in my office, above the door, I have a sign that says, "The most important work you will ever do is within the walls of your home." And that really is true for me as a mother, that even though I do have that work outside, the time with my daughters is truly a priority and something that I honestly treasure.
Yeah. Thank you, Stacy. What you said about the most important thing that you do is inside the four walls of the home. I think that traditionally that might be seen as just for moms, and it is for moms, but I also say it's for dads and men as well. The most important thing that we do is not just in what we accomplish, but how we care for our families and our wives and our moms and our kiddos. One of the things, Stacy, that I appreciate about your response is that you're working, you're building a business, but you're intentionally trying to not be perfect, but to be present. And I think that's a word, right, for all of us. To be present in the moments that you have. And sitting down and coloring with your kid might not be the most impressive thing or thing that you could put on social media, but it's probably the things that they remember most in their lives, And so thank you for sharing about that. I want to shift gears to Crystal. Crystal, your story is amazing. You and David, I know you guys, just like I know many of these families up here, have done an incredible job of fostering and adopting kiddos. So tell us a little bit about your family, and I have a question that I want to ask you.
So David and I have 5 kids, 2 biological, 19 and 15-year-old girls, and then the littles are adopted through foster care, and they are 8, 9, and 11 now.
Yeah, awesome. That's a lot right there. So much of parenting can feel transactional, like you give and then you get, or maybe that's the expectation. And I grew up in a culture where that was definitely the case. And maybe not all of the motives around parenting, but there's definitely a significant portion of it. And so in the Indian culture, you're expected to thrive and perform and get good jobs. And so they push us into the medical field because it's well-paying and it's stable. They're not going anywhere. So that's the 2 reasons why Indians are in the medical field. But part of the reason behind that is that if you can get your kid to be successful and wealthy in life, then the take is that they will take care of you, right? You do this for them and you raise them and they're successful, and then there's all these expectations of how you will take care of them. It can feel very transactional at times, which is why I love your journey of fostering, because as you foster these kiddos, there's not an expectation. Maybe even if you had an expectation of being with them and adopting them, you might not be with them for the rest of their lives. So tell us how fostering has changed your perspective on motherhood.
So we entered foster care. We fostered for 8 years, had 20 plus kiddos in and out of our home. And I entered foster care with kind of this tunnel vision, sadly, of I wanted to adopt. I've wanted to adopt since I was 12. And So I entered with this mindset, this motive, right? But the Lord quickly changed my mind and my heart, because it was no longer about a child in need that had been abused or neglected or abandoned, but parents, specifically for me, biological moms. And the Lord just kind of opened my eyes to say, this is where I need you to go. This is what I need you to do, is to minister and encourage these moms who many have never had a role model as a mom, right? And so that's what we did. And there's foster care and adoption is hard. There is loss, right? My son came to us as a baby. He was with us a year. He went back and lived with his mom. That's what it's about, right? It's about reunification, helping their parents get their kids back. 7 months later, he's back in our home, this time with baby brother. They're with us for 7 months. They're gone again. And the heartache and the pain, and that is real, right? I'm angry. Like, I lost this baby that I gave everything to. Now 2 babies, right? You give everything you have to love them well. But the Lord was like, wait a minute. Your pain, your loss, your frustration, your love is not any greater than the loss and that pain and anger that biological mom is feeling, that the kids are feeling, right? And loss is a part of our life. It really is, especially on Mother's Day. My 3 littles, they grieve the loss of their mom, their biological mom, every year, right? She's not there. They're not with her. And so I know a lot of us have loss, right? You're experiencing loss, but loss isn't the end of the story, right? It's just a part of it. It's a beautiful part of it, because in that loss is redemption, right? If we allow the Lord to speak, he comforts those who mourn, it says in Matthew, right? And so if we allow the Lord to do the work in our heart, he changes us, right? He taught me compassion and community, to be community for moms who didn't have it, to be a cheerleader, right? And so luckily, I mean, it's just by God's grace that my 3 littles have connection with their mom. Their mom is in their life. We're cautious. The littles drive that, depending on what kind of relationship, if they want to contact. But she is in our life, and the moms are in our life. We are doing life together with her. We're still encouraging their moms, being their cheerleaders, and yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Crystal. One of the things that I love about what you said is that you entered the lives of these kiddos and maybe wanted to rescue them from the situation that they were in, but God ended up using that for you to help rescue some of these moms as well and build relationships with these moms, which is so beautiful. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, when you step into something, it's messy. Ministry's messy, right? Our lives are messy. And I didn't have community in foster care. David worked a lot. We had lots of kids in and out of our home. And part of it was because of me, right? I'm very independent. I could handle it. Don't want to ask for help. Don't want to burden anybody. But then that comes to the isolation that people have talked about, right? And so the Lord just put it on my heart to be that community for somebody else, right? And so these moms needed someone to cheer them on. Obviously, in the case of my 3 littles, it didn't work out where they were able to reunify with their child. But I think that's important, is to find community. And if you feel alone, part of it is us, because we close ourselves off. And that's what I think with Shamira, the courage that she has to say, I'm not perfect, I need help. Then we build these relationships. So if you need community, come to me. I will help you find community, because I believe in it. I see it work, right? I still struggle with my own, right? But that's a challenge for me that I have to open up to, because community is important. We can't do life alone.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you. I shared before we kicked off the panel that Mother's Day is so complex because it's hard, and I'll just name it. I always struggle with how to approach Mother's Day as a pastor on a Sunday morning. Do we hit it on the head? Do we completely avoid it? Because there's so many complexities around this day. There's celebration, there's grieving, there's beauty, there's chaos. And even something that Crystal mentioned that I would have never thought of is you have kiddos that are grieving the loss of their biological mom. Just another layer of complexity around Mother's Day. So I said that today we hold all this open-handed, but also have been praying that God would meet everyone where they're at the specific stages of life that you find yourself in. So thank you for trusting us with this as well. I want to shift to Erin. Erin serves as our students director, and tell us a little bit about you, Erin.
Hi, I am not a mom. We'll just start there. But I am an aunt to the greatest kids. I have a nephew who is 8, a niece who is almost 4, and another nephew on the way. But I also get to love on a whole bunch of students every week. So I think God has been really kind to maybe shift what I thought it would look like to something completely different, but it is still beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted Aaron to be on this panel because I think, Aaron, you represent folks that are in the waiting, those who are in the longing period, those who maybe experience loss. And so you're a single woman that is longing to be a mother at some point in your life, praying for that. Tell us a little bit about how you have been able to be resilient in the waiting.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, and even the word resilience kind of gives this picture of changing, and we talk about milestones with families and things like that, and one of the unique things in singleness is that, at least from the outside, it can look very frozen. Like there aren't as many milestones, there aren't as many things as easily to see that are changing or to celebrate with others, and even well-meaning friends may not know what to say on a Mother's Day when you're their age but not a mom, right? And so how do you walk into that place? And I think when I was younger, I wanted to wait silently, but I think I realized in like silently waiting, that's where Satan can make us feel less than or othered, and that is so not God's heart, and he sees us completely in that space. I do think that there's space for both, to long for it and also love what God has given you. We see Paul in 2 Corinthians 12 literally say, God, please take this thorn in my flesh away from me. He says he asked God 3 different times and that God didn't. But instead, he reminds him that his strength is enough for him in that weakness. And actually, as I was even praying through what I was going to say, I was looking at my Bible, and next to that verse in my Bible, I have written, how do I share my story and who gets the glory? And so, and I had a date from like 5 years ago. I think it was one of those days where, like Heather talked about, sometimes the grief wins and sometimes the beauty wins. And I think it was one of those days where the grief was really hard. And so for me, I think it's that reminder of like God is bigger and he is good. And so if you've known me for more than like 5 seconds, I define pretty much every word. I love to look up what things mean. And one of the synonyms of resiliency is buoyancy. So to like keep you afloat. And so I think for me, to answer, like, how do I do this in the waiting? When it feels maybe from the outside that there aren't milestones, but there is beauty in it, I think the thing that keeps me afloat, the things that brings joy, is Jesus. And it can sound like a churchy answer, but it's also the most true thing that I can hold on to.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Aaron, oftentimes motherhood can become your identity, and there's some good in that. There might be some cons of that as well. Growing up in New York, studies will show they either don't become moms or become moms much later in life because career and individualism is a high value of that society. So you could have people in their 40s and they're single and not married and not have kids, and it's celebrated, right? But you move to the southern context where we're at, and you bring church into the fold. Being a mom, being married can become so much of your identity, or what's being told should be part of your identity. So how have you, being a single mom in your 40s, wanting to be a mom, how have you stayed whole and flourishing while not having that identity attached to who you are?
I think that's the first part, is just to be honest and say my head and my heart don't always agree in that space. Like, I know that singleness is a gift. It is not the gift that I thought that I would get when I was watching Disney movies growing up. Like, it is not what I circled and starred in the catalog. Catalogs were what we used to get gifts back in the day, kids. But what I've realized is it really is this beautiful gift that God has given me. And the true thing is, motherhood is a beautiful gift. Marriage is a beautiful gift. But if we're not careful, they can also become idols. And it can be something that it's like, I put this above God. I long for this more. My best friend years ago kind of made this comment to me. She's like, Erin, I'm so glad that marriage wasn't the climax in my life, because otherwise it would have been downhill at like 24. And I've never forgotten that. I've kind of held on to that, because the reality is any external thing is not what makes us whole, right? We're reminded that in Jesus, he says, I've come to give you life and life to the full. Like, in him is where my identity can be found. In him is where I am whole. And Jesus is our perfect example, and he was a single man with no children, right? So if I'm trying to be like Jesus, hey, I'm doing great. Single, not married, here we are, no kids. But the reality is, if that is my whole life, if I can run hard after Jesus, then I can flourish in that. And God has been so kind that for the last almost 20 years, I've gotten to work with the next generation. Like, I have gotten to see so many teenage girls and not just say it, but look them in the eye and say, hey, listen, my life may not look like I thought it was, but I'm not waiting for it to start. My life is full and whole, and I can long for the not yet, and I can love the now, and like see Jesus change their eternities. And so that has been the greatest gift for me, that regardless, it doesn't look like I originally thought it would, but I can look you in the eye and say, Jesus is enough, and I can mean it, and I can live it out. And so I said this to Alan, I was like, I don't want to be 120 like Moses was when he died. That's a bit old. But at the end of Deuteronomy, it tells us that his eyes were undimmed and his vigor was unabated. And like, that's what I want. I want to like run hard after Jesus, my eyes fixed on him. And no matter what, however long this season is, if this is the gift for the rest of my life, then it is worth it because Jesus is more than enough.
Thank you, Erin. I know that you've named this already, but I know that comes with grief, but I also appreciate the way that you're approaching it and keeping Christ at the center. And I say that for all of you guys. You guys are all doing incredible work in your specific stages of motherhood. And thank you for taking a time out of your week to prepare and time out of your Sunday morning to share your heart. Can we give it up one more time for our Mother's Day panel? As we close, I want to invite you to stand, church. Would you stand with me? As I mentioned, Mother's Day can be complex for many reasons, and I hope even those who are men in the room or parents in the room were able to learn some things from there. I appreciate Heather's perspective of redefining what success looks like. That's something that we can all learn from. Right? Shamira having to depend on community, and Stacy having to just be present, not just try to be perfect, and Crystal's story of giving yourself to folks and kiddos that may not be with you forever, and Aaron's story of longing and asking God. And there are many of you who have stories and stages that weren't named on the stage, and I just want to recognize that. Our hope today is that moms would feel celebrated, but those of you who are in complex stages of motherhood wouldn't feel invisible. And that's not just because of a church, but because there's a God who sees you right where you're at. And so before we close, I want to invite you to close your eyes, and I want to say a prayer over everyone that's here. I'm going to read out of Psalm chapter 139. The psalm writer says this: "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit, you know when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my beds in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast." God, I pray that every single person here, those who are in stages of motherhood, those who are in stages of being a mother figure, those who are in the longing and the waiting, those who are experiencing loss and grief, and those who are thriving and celebrating, that all would recognize that you are a God who sees us right where we're at. As the psalm writer says, "Where can I go from your presence?" There is no stage or season of life that we can outrun you or hide from you, because you are good. So I pray that your goodness is seen. I pray that as folks celebrate and we celebrate as a church, that most of all, that every single person here would be seen by you, will be known by you, will feel loved by you. I pray that no matter what stage they're in or season they're in, I pray that their identity would not be tied to those, but they would be able to rest in their identity as sons and as daughters of the Most High, knowing that there is a God whose goodness is visible because his essence is to be good, kind, and generous. So I pray, Lord, that you would comfort those who are grieving, that you would meet those who are experiencing loss or who have just experienced loss. I pray in all the complexities of what this day might bring that we would still choose to remember moms in our lives, or women that are in the trenches caring for their kids sacrificially. I pray that today will be a day of celebration because you see us and there's a community that sees us as well. We thank you for this time. We love you and we rest in your comfort. It's in Jesus' name we pray. And the church said, amen. Amen.